Joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show, love this man. Not just saying it because I'm about to introduce him on this program. He is the host of the Worldwide Leaders coverage of the Masters, as well as the host of the Midnight Sports Center that bears his name. He's Scott Van Pelt back here on the program. How you doing, SVP?
Best week of the year, Rich. It's my favorite day of Masters Week, Wednesday. I'm quite good. Although I'm wearing a suit and it's going to be 90, so I'm going to be a little schwitzy.
Okay.
Schwitzy a little later.
Well, you hopefully are going to take a page from the Chris Berman book, where I don't know. I've told you this story. I did the home run derby in Atlanta. I believe it was 2000, the year 2000. And Chris did he was in the center field stands. I did the Sports Center before and after, or Baseball Tonight, whatever. And Chris did the home run derby, and he had extra shirts with him, and he had the people at Turner Field at the time keep the extra shirts in the meat locker freezer in center field for him to change into a frozen shirt to make sure it cooled him down when he changed into a shirt. How about that, Scott?
Well, that's next level. That's why he's the boom schwa. A couple of things. It's not midsummer in Atlanta. It's a little warm.
Okay.
And also, no one schwitzes like Boom.
That's true. That's true. The man has glands on top of glands. I agree.
Bonus glands. No, I'm not going to. We're going to be fine. I'm going to keep it together.
But I don't want to get you in trouble. Is there a freezer guy at Augusta National that you could know throughout the years that you could give a shirt to, and it would be fine?
Here's what I'd say. Here's what I'd say about Augusta National.
Yes, sir.
There's a guy. Okay.
That's it.
Is there a freezer guy? There's a guy.
There's a guy.
I guarantee there's a guy.
And before we just jump into the seriousness of it, what's with the new profile pic? What is that on your Twitter handle, Scott? What is that?
So many years ago, Adam Scott and Bo Van Pelt, PGA Touring professional Bo Van Pelt, were paired together at Augusta National. So they had the very famous boards with the names of the competitors, and it just so happened that the way it was put on the board was Scott Van Pelt. So it isn't me, it was Adam and Bo, but there's my name on the board, and we took that picture years ago. And I save it in the phone, and then every year for the week we bust it out and we make that the avatar for Twitter. What's crazy is that if you go back and search, I forget what year it was. Might have been. I mean, God, it's one of those things where it feels like in my brain it was 5 years. It was probably 15 years ago. On the same Sunday, Adam and Bo each aced the 16th hole, and so the headline that day, like on ESPN.com, was Scott, Van Pelt, ace 16 in Masters, which, again, I didn't do that, but there's my name in the bright lights, so to speak, Scott Van Pelt, acing 16. So it's just a small little piece of Masters lore that would mean nothing to anyone but me.
No, it means a lot to. I think that's funny. I could never pull that off. There's no. I guess if the actor from back in the day, the child actor Adam Rich.
Or Buddy Rich.
No, Buddy Rich, good drummer, Buddy Rich, in the celebrity program with, I don't know, like Norm Eisen, the creator of 2000 Flushes, if you remember that commercial back in the day. I don't think he would ever get in some sort of a celebrity event, but that would be about it.
It's a hell of a reach, but we've got you on the board, though.
See, you won't have these interviews with anybody else from the Masters. All right.
And I look forward to it all the time. A tradition unlike any other.
I love it, and you're so cool to do this again on the par 3 day, which is so much fun. Let's just jump into it. Turning to the weather, is there an issue? Do we have an issue for the weekend?
Yes, unfortunately, it would appear so. And I mean, anytime you're this far out and there's sort of uniform agreement, Saturday's going to be bad, and it would appear Saturday's going to be bad, and we're joking about it being hot here. It is today. It's going to be like 50 and pouring on Saturday. So the question becomes, can they play? Everyone knows that it's coming. It's a small field to begin with, but the hope would be that you're able to finish your play on Thursday and Friday, get your cut together, and then just sort of see what Saturday brings with it. But it seems all but certain that Saturday's weather will be bad. Will it allow play to go on? That part I don't know. If it does, it's just going to be a miserable round for these players because it's mid-50s and pouring on an incredibly hilly and difficult golf course. Have at it. But it seems that absolutely weather will eventually be part of the story here.
And then and Sunday as well, or it's just Saturday we're talking?
Maybe better for Sunday, but, I mean, they haven't had when we used to go to the U.S. Open, we would not speak the P word during the week because we didn't want to speak it into existence. That, of course, is playoff, because playoff for the U.S. Open used to mean a Monday finish. So you just wouldn't say it out loud because you were afraid it would happen. And around here, no one brings up Monday much, simply because Monday hasn't happened since 1983, I don't believe. But, I mean, look, I got nowhere to go. I mean, if we stick around another day here in Augusta National, no one will be complaining. But that's way down the road. That may not even be necessary, but it might be. So I know we'll deal with that when we get there.
So what else is the conversation around Augusta National prior to the Masters, Scott Van Pelt?
Thankfully, it's mostly golf. I've gone on with, like buddies of mine that have shows that did PTI yesterday with Tony and Michael, and they're saying, like, the LIV and the PGA. And I said, honestly, these guys are the guys that get along, and the guys that weren't buddies before this happened. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, here comes Scottie Scheffler, here comes John Rahm, here comes Rory McIlroy. They've ping-ponged back and forth on who's number one in the world. They all arrived playing really good golf. Tiger's here and healthy enough where it's not like, can he finish? But it is still a question about his ability to get up and down and around the golf course. But in terms of storylines and really good players playing well, there's not much more you could have asked for on your wish list. So the anticipation about the first round of the Masters is always as high as any round of the year. But this year, the list of players that you're like, man, what if this guy or what if that guy? It's long, and all of them seem reasonable.
And in terms of Tiger, him talking on Tuesday, Scott, about that, he was asked the question if he's out there thinking, could this be his last? And he said he didn't know how many he had left in him. Nobody knows that answer. I wouldn't even ask you, how many do you think he has left in him? What would a post-Tiger playing in the Masters week look like? Tiger would clearly be there, right? Champions dinner.
Sure.
I don't see him as a ceremonial first tee guy at age 51, right? I mean, I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
No.
What does it look like to you?
No, I think, look, the funny thing, Rich, about this game, Nicklaus famously was talked about the Champions Tour, and like, I'm not doing that. And then he's out there playing when he's 70-some years old. I mean, he's still out there playing. And, Tiger alluded to it. One of his dear friends in the game is his buddy Fred Couples. And he said, I'm only a few years away from being able to use a buggy like my buddy Fred Couples, talking about playing on the Champions Tour. Like, the guy loves to compete. And there was a time in my life where if you'd have told me he'd ever play Champions Tour events, I'd have laughed heartily in your face. He's Tiger Woods. He's not doing that. And now I'm thinking, oh, yeah, he'll do that. I think he'll do that. And so I don't believe that he's done close to done, well, closer than we'd like him to be. But I think he'll still be able to compete here for several years, if not more. But the thing I don't think you'll see him do is playing here when he truly believes, I got no shot. Like, I don't think that will happen. But I do, both he and Rory, who he played practice rounds with, said, look, he's got the shots, got every shot. Nobody's got the ability to hit him better or has hit them better around here than that guy. It's simply a matter, Rich, of can you get up and down these hills? Because for the viewers and listeners that aren't familiar, there is no hillier golf course that they play yearly than Augusta National.
Scott Van Pelt joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show from Augusta National. It is Masters Week. So give me the name of some guys that are the up-and-comers that could come to the fore here this week. The next guard, if you will, that's beginning to form, Scott.
If you're talking players, like, I mean, my pick, if I can jump ahead, I mean, at some point, probably say, who do you like? I mean, it's just, only 88 guys, but still, if you can pick the guy out of the 88, to me, that's kind of It's not like we're asking San Diego State or UConn. I mean, it's not one of two. It's one of the field. I like Xander to win. He's not an up-and-coming name, though. I mean, he's obviously a well-established player.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a young guy like Cameron Young, aptly named, he hasn't won yet on tour, but he's certainly shown that he's got the goods, and obviously he's seen as being worthy of being alongside John Rahm and Justin Thomas. That's who plays together. Again, Patrick Cantlay's not an up-and-comer. He's a highly ranked player. Hasn't won a major championship yet. Wouldn't surprise anybody if he were able to break through at a place like this. He's been in contention here a number of different times. So those would be a couple of names that I'd say that are sort of off the first page of people that you might list.
Right.
But the thing, Rich, about Augusta National, it's so hard to look past all of the guys who have won here and who have been close here. And that would include a LIV Tour guy in Brooks Koepka, who I've brought him up in any interview I've done simply because I get a weird feeling he's in the mix this week, simply because he won his last LIV Tour event. He's won 4 majors, and he's healthy. And when he's been right, I mean, very few people have been any better in majors. He's got 4 of them. Not many. Only 4 guys in this field have won 4 or more majors, and Koepka is one of them. So obviously, he's not on the list of who you're asking about. I just think he's not the betting favorite, and he's somebody worth taking a swing at if that's something you're interested in doing.
Well, I mean, and if he wins, the entire LIV Tour that's there is going to greet him at the 18th green, right? Isn't that what I heard?
Well,
what Norman said?
Norman said that, but
yes.
I mean, he's. I don't. That seems a bit ambitious. I don't know that everyone would be here doing that, but it would be undoubtedly a monstrous storyline for that tour if they were to get one of their tour players to win this event. Whether everyone who's here was there to celebrate with him, that seems a bit ambitious. I think those that missed the cut will have gone home by then, but you never know.
Well, I guess again, I know you said that the guys get along. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about this tour getting more eyeballs on it, and clearly, if a player who's on the LIV Tour wins the Masters, we in the media would talk about it. Would it get more people tuning into the CW to watch their watch their matches with teams and names and uniforms and music and the lack of history? That's still a tall order. I still don't think that would happen, to be very honest with you, Scott.
I don't either. I mean, I think obviously it would help, but I mean, would it make Brooks Koepka more? Would people be like, wait, what's his name? I mean, everyone knows who Brooks Koepka is already.
Right.
He's won 4 majors. You know what it feels like to me? And there's a lot of layers to this. I mean, because the PGA Tour benefited massively. The PGA Tour players benefited massively from what the LIV Tour players did, because suddenly the tour looked under a couch cushion and found a pile of money, which all these guys are now getting to play for. So, what a fun little coinky-dink for them. But it feels a lot like the other leagues that want to play football. And now they don't go head-to-head with the NFL, but it's just really hard to get people to do something new and find a new place to consume something, even if it's people who they want to consume. There is a place you can watch it now, and it just hasn't. It's early in this, the incarnation of this tour. But I'm with you. I don't know that people are going to suddenly say, "Hey, let's watch this event." If they want to, they probably already would have. I don't know. It's not that it doesn't interest me. What interests me is that these guys are all competing head-to-head this week. That's what I'm excited about, because it's better when they do.
No doubt.
There's no denying that, I don't think.
No question.
Better to have these guys here in the mix. Better to have Cam Smith here and Koepka and Dustin Johnson and on down the line. And whether one of them were to win and people were to watch, I have no earthly idea.
Me too. So to put a button on this, why Xander Schauffele? Why do you choose him out of the 88?
Because this week, more than any other major, I care about how you played here more than I care how you played lately. And he's been close on several occasions. I don't want to get uber golfy. I worry. I mean, he hasn't driven the ball great this year, but this is a second shot golf course. You'll hear that said all the time. Why? Because it's about your irons into the greens, and it's about being in the right places on these greens. You really need to know how to play this golf course, and I think he does. And there's a certain level of inevitability, I think, with players like him, who, you know, they're put themselves in contention, top 5, top 10 in major time after time. There's a certain inevitability that a player that good, that comfortable, with that much belief in his ability, it's just his time to have his best moment when his best moment's required. And so it's a guess, obviously, on a Wednesday, but I like his chances. But I don't look too far down beyond LeChalk. You know, if you say, well, who else? I'd say Spieth. You know, and that's hardly that's not like a long shot pick. I like Spieth's chances here as well. But I do really think Koepka's going to compete, and I could be dead wrong. But I'd love to see him healthy enough to be at his best version of who he is on this stage, because I know how much these stages, you know, get his full attention and bring out the best of Koepka. But that's really what it is. And he likes Schauffele and Spieth as well. All those guys I'm talking about have played well here. Spieth's the only one of that trio who's won, but they've all been there and know what it feels like to be there on Sunday.
Last thing for you, Scott. I saw the photo of the Champions Dinner, and it's kind of like the coach's photo at the NFL owners meeting, right? You know, where you're just like looking at who's standing where and who's sitting where and all of that stuff. But is this like Fight Club? Do you hear stories about, hey, this happened last night, that happened last night, anything like that? Did you get anything like that from the Champions Dinner at all?
Fight Club's a great analogy, because I believe that group understands what it is to be in that group, and when they speak of the night, it's typically in vague. Oh, you know, it's great. So and so is telling them great stories. You know what I mean? Like you don't get the details. You know, like the old line about like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's a lie, because every great Vegas story you tell your buddies in very specific, lurid details, right? You give chapter and verse.
Yes.
Here's what happened, and then this happened, then that happened. Yes. It doesn't stay in Vegas. But what happens in the Champions Dinner, that mostly remains in that room. And honestly, I feel like it ought to. You know, they've earned the right to sit in the company of fellow champions. And you know, what's really cool, no jokes aside, is I've heard what I have heard is that every now and again one of the older champions who maybe doesn't often have the floor has a chance to sit and remember that week when he was the best version of himself. And imagine what it would be like to have the attention of that whole room as you remember who you were in the best week of your life. And that's honestly, that's a really, really cool thought.
Now, it is the only equivalent I have for that is the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When they welcome in the new class, they have a luncheon. It's called the Nitschke Luncheon, because Ray Nitschke would hold it for all the returning Hall of Famers to welcome in the new class. And they would basically haze them. They would roast them. They would haze them. They would say, this is the last time you're a rookie in your entire life. Now you're immortal like us. And then once Ray Nitschke passed away, it was Deacon Jones who ran the room. I believe it's now Willie Lanier who does it. He's much more statesman-like. But that they would stand up, and all the new class of Hall of Famers would stand up and speak. And so would the returning class of Hall of Famers and speak. And I just don't know if there's a moment like that at this Champions Dinner. I saw that photograph. I thought, I'm wondering if that's something like that where they get up. You know,
as I said, I think, you know, I just respect that the stories belong to them mostly. But like I said, I've heard the moments where you know, an older gentleman has the floor, and that just makes me smile to think about, you know, because that's really what this week is about for those guys. A chance to come back and slip on that jacket, and as my colleague Wright Thompson says, you know, remember who he was when he was a younger man.
Love it. Take care of yourself, Scott Van Pelt. You're the best. Thanks for the time on a very busy week. Enjoy the par 3, and let's chat down the line.
I always appreciate the time. You're a great friend, as you know, and I root for you from afar always.
Right back at you. Same to you. At Not the Fake SVP with his new avatar, or rehashed avatar, great avatar, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.